All set?
You just speak to that computer for a minute.
Okay.
Excellent. Was it what?
I think it's vacant, right?
Come on.
Good for something.
Yeah, that'd be good for something.
Yeah. All set?
Yes.
Okay, welcome everyone. It's 7 PM planning board time, and this is the planning board meeting for June 17th, 2019. It's 7 o'clock under general business. I need someone to make a motion to approve the minutes from the 6/3 meeting. I'm assuming everyone read it. So moved. Thank you.
I second.
Thank you, Bill. Any comments or corrections? Spelling mistakes? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So you have 6-0.
Who's abstaining?
No one's abstaining. 6-0. I think everyone was here at the last meeting.
I wasn't, but I watched it, so should I
You
abstain?
watched it, so,
Yeah, because you really only, you never want more than a 5 in the affirmative vote. We forgot to take care of one piece of business. Scott Paul, full member, is missing. So you have to pick, as chairman, whether Kyle is filling in for Scott or Bill is filling in for Scott. And then you've got to, I'll keep track of it, so then you'll alternate the next time we need a full member fill-in between the two if they're both here.
Follow it.
Ed.
You won.
Oh,
Bill's on.
boy.
You're on, Bill.
Yeah, I just wanna be here for those public hearings I've been on, if Kyle wants to be the man
Well-
otherwise.
There will be, at least IBA, you're both in.
Okay.
Because Miriam's not eligible to vote on that, so IBA, you're both in on that. But, so Bill is the stand-in for Scott on everything else tonight then? WT for F.
All right, I think I brought it forward. Okay, pay attention, Bill. Let's see, under filings, we have 3 of them.
Contrary to what it says on the screen.
All right, the first thing we have for filing is 188 Mendon Road, 2 retreat lots. And we're,
Yeah, 188 Mendon Road, that is a filing for, it's one parcel being broken into 4 lots, and that is going to be, with 2 retreat lots. So, that will be heard on the 15th of July. The second filing is a common driveway at 125 and 135 Singletary Avenue. So that's one common drive to serve 2 lots on Singletary. That'll be heard at your next meeting on July 1st. And 352 Manchog Road, otherwise known as the Manchog School, the old Manchog School that was renovated. That is going to be 3 condominiums and 1 cafe, and that will be on your July 15th meeting. So I just need you to acknowledge those legal filings.
consider them acknowledged.
Okay.
All right, we have some site plans to endorse.
You have Oakhurst Road, Sutton Solar 2. That site plan you voted quite some time ago. This sideways site plan here. And that's the upper part of this solar installation. So Sutton Solar 1 is the lower part of those panels that have been in for a while. Sutton Solar 2 is the upper portion of those panels. A portion lays in Sutton, a portion lies in Northbridge. That diagonal line that goes from left to right, kind of, is the town line. Northbridge is to the right, Sutton is to the left. And north is to the right, and south is to the
Do
left.
I sign it, or do we all sign it?
You all need to sign it, so if you wanna just do the motion
All
to endorse the plan dated, and that plan is, most recent revision date of August 30th, 2018, then we can just do the motions and sign everything at the end of the meeting.
August 30th?
August 30th, 2018.
See that on here.
Right there.
It's a revision
Okay,
date.
got, okay, yep. Oh, go
So
ahead,
we'll
Michael, take it away.
Make a motion to approve the,
endorse.
the site point, dated 8/30/18
You got it.
for 25 Oakhurst Road.
Perfect.
Need a second?
Second.
Thank you, Marion. Any discussion?
Nope.
Board, any discussion from the public? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained.
Okay.
So we can pass it over and you can
Yeah, just don't let me forget,
Stop.
please.
you know,
All right, and then you
pass it
have the site plan for 222 Whitens Road. This is the gutter, cut and drop gutter guy. So these are his revised plans. So again, we just need a motion to endorse. And the date of those plans, the most recent revision date is May 29th, 2019.
the other end, probably.
I move that we accept the site plan for 222 Whitens Road, dated 5/29/2019.
Recent,
That's the most recent revision.
319.
Oh, 3/19.
What?
Wait a minute.
Oh,
is that-
529.
that's-
Yes,
529. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, 5/29/2019.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Endorse. Yes.
Need a second?
Second.
Any discussion from the board? Any discussion from the public? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Everyone signs these too?
Yep.
Send that way. Meet in the middle.
We sign them?
Yep.
Oh, pretty dope. You don't sign the North Third block
Sign
on the
first.
Sutton Solar, please.
Sign them later? Are we signing them now or later?
Whatever you want.
We can do them while we hear.
Just
We
try
have
not
the
to
report.
rustle pages too much.
Here's some correspondence that we need to get reports from. And the first thing on the correspondence calendar is the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission Legislative Breakfast Update. And fortunately, Wally
As well as the annual meeting update.
went on our dime. But for those people that are, hopefully everyone's familiar, the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission is an interesting organization that gives us services if we send a member from our board to their monthly meeting. And it's a challenge because it's Central Mass planning stuff. I can tell you about a long night I had in Hopedale trying to fix traffic on 495 in Milford. I-Pix saying, what am I doing here? But the fact of the matter is, if someone goes, there are times when Central Mass Regional Planning Commission does stuff that involves Central Mass and Sutton, and that's when you find out about shovel-ready projects and things that we can take advantage of as a town. So Wally likes it, so we keep sending them.
Most days. So this is their website I have up on the screen. You can see the towns that are represented by Central Mass Regional
And you have to be
Planning.
connected. Wally
All
was-
of the Central Mass communities. And the state has many regional planning agencies. This is our regional planning agency. So like there's the Metropolitan Planning Commission, that is Boston and certain communities around. There's the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. This is ours. So we are a member of this commission. We get 12 local planning assistant hours as a base every year for them to help us do things. And then every meeting that Wally attends, we get an extra hour for. So, and they deal with all kinds of great things. You can see community development, transportation, GIS and regional services, mapping, homeland security, and we deal with it on a regional basis. No point in reinventing the wheel. So when we do something good in one community, they can share it with all communities. So it's a great organization. But with that, legislative breakfast and annual meeting
How
update.
was the meal, Wally?
The meal was good. I can tell you, the Salem Cross Inn is really excellent. That was the main, that was the annual meeting. What is a ways out there?
There are perks for planning board members.
I want to talk, just mention briefly, the legislative affairs, Joe McKenna, local rep, he was there at this. And we had a gentleman by the name of Juan Vega, who's from the Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development from the governor's office. And these are just the bullet points that he made to us. And basically what the governor, their charter right now is to grow business in Massachusetts, because most of the business growth is gonna come from small business, already located here within the state. The second item is to get companies to relocate to Massachusetts. But I think sometimes we see all these headlines and we think it's probably the other way around. You mentioned GE, and I get Raytheon and UTC gonna combine and move, and basically set up their corporate in Massachusetts. And the third thing, which I thought also was interesting, is that they want growth of people. Because it isn't gonna do you any good, you're not gonna get these businesses if you don't have a trained workforce in whatever it is. Computers, medicine, you're just building things or whatever. You've gotta have people that are gonna be able to, capable and step up and do it. The two biggest issues, and this is all throughout the Commonwealth that we have right now, or what they think that we have, I'm just parroting what they said, were housing and transportation. And you can, sometimes Greater Boston, I understand, can just swamp everybody, but I think that a lot of these issues are also reflected in the smaller communities, where people have to move to small communities because it's the only place they can afford to live, and now they're spending 2 or 3 hours a day just getting to work somewhere. So, and there's no solutions to any of this. This is just stating what I call some facts, and, at least people in the know are aware of this, which is better than ignoring it. That'd be my take. That was, that the annual meeting was at the Salem Cross Inn. They had 168 people there, which is the largest meeting they've ever had anywhere. And they rotate this around. It was at a golf club in West Boylston last year, so it's not always in the same place. And they had the Commissioner of Agriculture talking of, a bunch of facts, but, Worcester County, believe it or not, has more farms than any other county in the Commonwealth. This is some of the things I've took away from here. It's becoming more difficult for farmers to survive here in the Commonwealth. I just say in general, anywhere, whether it's here, Iowa, or whatever, small farmers are in trouble. And what they're trying to do is help them out, coming up with different programs, and monitoring the whatever the federal government can do and the Commonwealth. So that's the report from that. We're off for the summer. We start in September or October.
Awesome.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you. Any questions from any board members?
Nope.
Good job, Will.
I do have a brochure here if anybody really wants to look at it.
The Salem Cross Inn.
It's all the farms registered here.
It's interesting, and I'm going back 3 or 4 years. 5 years ago, when there was some redistricting, and we ended up with a new congressman, and he, his name is Jim McGovern, and he made the comment at a meeting that he had that there's, through farm business in Nebraska, they build police stations. He has no idea how they do that, but he does know at the federal level, there's things that you hang your hat on that we're not aware of. And, part of going to these conferences is just hearing stuff that we would never hear about, sitting at the center store, or read about it in the local newspaper. But that's the place where you hear about stuff.
Yeah.
And if it's a national issue and it's also a local issue, and I'm just running with what you said, and we have all the farms in central Mass, and he's gonna come to Sutton, how to connect it to the road and to the school. I don't know, that's what you let the congressman to do, and then he has to work with other reps and get everybody on board, because it's all tied to, being connected to all the other projects that are going on, so, good.
I think he is on the agricultural committee.
Yeah, I know he said he was gonna
In
try to get on it
Congress.
because he
He's
knew
on there.
that's where there was money, and
Yeah.
everyone wants money. But I want money for my projects, so We all get selfish once in a while, it's only somehow connected. Good, all right,
So we have two more things under correspondence other.
right, there's an accessory apartment opinion that, we have to consider for 14 Lakeview. Yep, Lakeview. All right, if you
I'll
can
let
introduce
these
yourself.
gentlemen introduce
Hi,
themselves.
my name's Gary Moyer. I'm an architect representing Jeff Roy and his wife Kim. They would like to build an accessory apartment, and that's for Jeff's mother-in-law Millie. We're
The
gonna hand
reason you're
out.
seeing them before you see a filing is because I had some concerns with the layout of this particular setup. So I wanted them to come see you before they make this filing. So, I did explain, and we went through the regs in detail. And, I was explaining to them how typically when you see an accessory apartment, it's an integral part of a house or it's an integral part of a barn or garage. And the floor plan, that originally came in with the potential filing, you can see the existing house is very much up to the front, or the top side of this project. And then you have the existing garage, very clearly labeled, and then the new proposed garage bay addition, and then kind of off the back, the proposed accessory apartment. So a little less integrated than we normally see these things, so I said, you know what, I don't want you to get into a public hearing and have the board say, you know what, this really doesn't meet the intent of the regulations, so why don't you come to the board, explain why you think it does meet the intent of the regulations, and at least get a reading from the board, whether they agree or whether they think changes need to be made, relative to what you've got proposed here and the specific language of the regulation. I'll have Mr. Moyer kind of present what they're planning on doing, and then we can look at the three little phrases in the bylaws which I'm not sure about, and then, or you can go over those if you want, Mr. Moyer, the three we
Okay.
talked about, and, make your pitch and see what the board says.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for the opportunity to present informally. We're looking for your guidance. Why don't you just present to you the challenges of this particular project. The site is here on Oakhurst at the end of a cul-de-sac. So the neighboring houses, this is the garage that we intend to add onto. The neighboring houses, about 176 feet this way, the number 38, 247 feet, the number 39, 73 feet between the houses here, and there's a neighbor across the pond that's 700 plus feet. So, and there's nobody behind here. So we thought the appearance from the road is paramount here, trying to get it to blend in with the existing structure, maintain the character of the neighborhood. That's the existing house here. This is the garage we intend to add to, and it is connected. We have a gable element here on the right side. We wanted to add another garage bay for Jeff's truck and tractor, and so we proposed to add on, see, this is the front view here. So existing garage is a salt box, low scale, only about 15 feet tall. So we're proposing to add a salt box rotated 90 degrees. So we get the garage bay door there for the tractor and the truck. Then the in-law is behind that. So as you're coming down the cul-de-sac, what you're gonna see is primarily this. You don't really see the accessory structure. There's maybe a small portion of the roof in elevation that pokes up slightly. The proposed addition, so in floor plan, we have the 2-bay garage, so that Jeff's wife will have a bay, her mother will have a bay and be able to go directly into the in-law. And the added bay here is for the truck and tractor. This is the proposed addition on the back. So we did some perspectives to show you the particular challenges of getting a roof on this. So if we were to, say, take that entire footprint and put a roof on it, it would be very overpowering. We'd be towering up and overpowering the low scale of that house. We thought it important to maintain, try not to go much higher than that existing 15-foot ridge. So the other challenges are, Millie is 70 or so, 77. And so we wanted to make the apartment accessible, no steps to get into the apartment. So the idea is that she would pull into the garage, no steps to get into the apartment here. So there was thinking that perhaps we'd be better off if we were to add the accessory apartment on the other side, but we have no driveway over there, it's more difficult to get to, so we thought the obvious choice was an existing floor plan, site plan here rather, existing garage, add the garage bay on, accessory apartment behind. And so, we believe we meet the criteria. I think what Jen had flagged here was that an accessory apartment shall be designed to maintain the appearance of the single-family dwelling, which is part and be clearly subordinate to the single-family dwelling. A detached accessory apartment shall look like a barn or garage. And otherwise, an accessory apartment cannot be its own standalone structure. It must be a portion of the main dwelling or no more than 50% of a detached accessory structure, such as a garage or a barn. So to look at the square footages, the existing garage is 576 square feet. The garage addition is 633 square feet for a total of 1209. The apartment is 813 square feet as designed for a total square footage of 2,022. 50% of that is 1,011, which is greater than the 813 we're proposing for the apartment.
So again, the concern just flags to kind of what you see on sheet 2 and 3, where you have the existing garage, you have the proposed new garage bay for the truck and the tractor, and then the accessory apartment really sits behind as its own kind of separate structure. So it's linked, it's linked without a doubt to the existing garage and the proposed garage addition. It's linked, but it's not kind of an integral part of the existing garage. So you can see by the roof lines, it is attached by all the roof lines. The new garage bay does share a foundation wall with the new apartment, but there is not a walk-through there. But there is a physical connection between the existing garage and the accessory apartment via the deck structure, which has a roof over it. So again, it's unlike ones we've seen where, you know, you have a big old garage and they put an apartment upstairs, or you have a barn and they pull off the, you know, they put a wall up in the back part of the barn as the apartment, the front part of the barn is for tractors. Or you just stick an addition on the house and it's just part of it. So it's just a little bit of a different animal, and I did not want them to spend the money on the hearing, start through the hearing process if it was something that might cause them an issue. So, I suggested they come see you, see what your thoughts are before we schedule a public hearing.
Smart move.
And like I said to Mr. Mosier, there's nothing that he's saying that doesn't make sense. Everything he says makes sense. Everything he's done is considerate in terms of scale and everything. It's just whether it complies with the intent of the regulation and the wording of the regulation or not. And that's not my call, that's your call. So,
What's your first name?
My name's Jeff.
Jeff, smart move coming in. Typically when something like this happens, I ask every board member to say what they think, right off the cuff, the
Yep.
knee-jerk reaction. And then I'll ask if there's anyone here that has anything to say. That gives you a pretty good indication as to which way the wind's blowing, and based on those comments, sometimes Jen will chime in because I might say something that's completely illegal, but I don't know that, I'm just saying what I think. She'll rein us back in and say, nice idea, but you can't do that, Bob. You know, so,
try not to do that.
Bill, what's your knee-jerk reaction?
Well, I think
Excuse me?
Excuse me, 211 Boston Road pushed off again?
211 is going to be pushed, yes. So if you're here for 211, you can go home. It's gonna be opened.
That's
No,
okay.
it's gonna be opened, and then we'll do a motion to continue to the 1st of July, so you can just call my office and I'll be happy to give you the time. Okay? You bet, take care.
this part of the bylaw came in after I was on the board last time, so I really don't know what the full intent of the bylaw is. I'm reading it as we speak. So I am going to pass.
Oh, sure.
Right now.
like a game show.
Well, give me a second so I can kind of
Come back.
grasp the bylaw.
And Marion, before you, and
What page on the
that gives
bylaw
Bill
do you
time to speak.
What page on the bio, any
We
idea?
certainly,
Page 121.
the accessory apartment, it became clear that people were, 10, 15 years ago,
We have them.
people were making room for mom in the house. And then unfortunately, when the 911 call came, because there was an emergency, they didn't know what door to go to. And that, it became the accessory apartment was created, so it wasn't a witch hunt. We weren't going back to deal with all the people that had already done. We just drew a line in the sand and said, from this point forward, we need to talk about creating a safe space so we can do the stuff that taxpayers expect. Our first round, we thought was real good, and then everyone that came in couldn't build the accessory apartment because our numbers were too small. So it became clear after 3 or 4 people came in to try to do it the right way that we needed to tweak it a little bit, so we expanded it. And that gets us into an accessory apartment situation. It's not an in-law apartment it's very different.
Doesn't have to be.
And it's just very important when people, as the town changes and the people who live in town change, critically, we need to know where people are and what door they have to go to when people arrive. And the septic system has to work, because that wasn't the plan. And so that's the spirit of the law, if you will. And as they come in, people come in with new ideas, and that stretches us, Jen's doing her job to say,
Can you
well,
see it?
we haven't seen one quite like this, so we best come in and see what people think, and then move forward. If there's any recommendations, does that help? I hope. Go ahead, Mary.
My problem with this, or the challenge that in my mind, is the new garage bay addition. Did I hear correctly that you're adding the new to the old to get the square foot number they needed?
Yeah,
am
I
I
mean,
just confused?
if they don't add that 633, the new garage bay, which they need, he needs his
Yeah.
tractor and his truck
Sure,
storage.
yeah.
Then yeah, if they just had the 576 on the existing garage.
Yeah.
And they tried this size accessory apartment, they wouldn't meet the numbers.
So, and then, and because, the reason really why I have an issue with the new garage bay is because of the, being able to, the emergency services being able to see the entryway, like where they're really going. Like right now, they're going around the garage to get to the accessory apartment.
Through.
Yeah, that's really it,
Okay. Paul?
I like the overall concept, and it seems to me to be a well-defined unit. And I like the single level, is certainly very important. But I would share this concern. We've had other issues where we actually had one situation where the attachment was actually on another street.
Oh, yeah, the corner.
And it was
one.
like 100 feet away from where the address was. And what are you gonna do if it's in the middle of the winter and you're in Florida and your mother-in-law has an issue? And maybe she's deaf. And, we're trying to preclude that type of thing. So maybe there's some way to put a different address on here, or
would
I
have
don't
to.
know. It's beyond my scope of knowledge at this point, but
The access would be from the driveway right in here, so it's really
Yeah.
not that far away.
it's not that far. It's just, you're gonna be able to see it. It's under an emergency condition, and people are not that
Yep, so
familiar with it either.
We
They
could
just,
put
they
a
just
number
got
with
the-
a letter behind it or something like that to
something,
designate
yeah,
that.
because they just got
with
their
a separate
GPS,
address.
and this is the first time they've even been there. They're not gonna be
Yep.
looking around
Yep.
for this, that, or whatever. Hopefully, that's time for them to be looking around.
Right.
I like it. It still appears to be a single-family home, which is real important. I think finding a way that the police, fire, everyone can know where to go when they get there, because seconds matter. If there's a way to do that, I like it a lot.
Well, we will have, I believe, the existing doorway here as well, would there be? You could almost have a sign, because when you pull into the driveway, you have our garage here now, and then you have an open walkway.
Right.
That's attached with a roof. So it would be, they'd come up a couple steps, take a left, and there would be we could hang the sign, grandma's house here, kind of right on the end of the structure, so they would, as you pull into the driveway, you would see that sign.
You don't want to say grandma's house, grandma's accessory
Yes, grandma's
apartment.
accessory apartment.
Not two houses.
GAA. So that could be, we could put something there, a floor plan, so that would show that would be an actual.
Two addresses.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and residence there.
And all kidding aside, if she's choking,
Exactly,
or if you're choking, she's calling.
Yep.
Just seconds matter.
yep.
Sure, we also have a sliding glass door off the deck, so if emergency personnel are coming into the driveway, it's simply straight down here, and they can get in there, so signage would help a lot to get somebody there.
I think, just looking over some of the requirements, the first one you had talked about was designed to maintain the appearance of the single home as it was, and I think you certainly do that. Coming into the house, it looks,
Yeah,
with just the garage next to it. The second piece with the accessory apartments, not to exceed 1,200 square feet, again, it seems like you're meeting that.
yep,
I didn't do all the calculations you went through, but, I'm
yeah,
sure
the
that
apartment
is.
would be 813, so.
The only one I have just a little thoughts with would be just, is this actually attached to the house? Where it really appears to be mostly detached. And it's got a
attached to the
walkway,
garage.
Yeah, to the garage.
it's a little, I don't know if,
Technically, there are roofs that connect every piece of the
Right.
structure, so I guess it's up to you to decide.
It's a framing nightmare.
The existing garage is attached to the house now.
Okay.
There's a walk-through, which is open air, so there's a foundation, there's a roof.
Right.
So everything is under roof and
again,
connected.
I wasn't here as well on the board when they came up with these type of changes, but just reading them,
Yep.
that's the only little piece of it that
Okay.
stands out a little bit. It doesn't mean it would stop it, it's just, but the other two seem like you've met all of them, so.
So it's clearly not a accessory apartment attached to the house, it's just not. The garage structure is separate, and existing roof attaching them doesn't qualify. So the question is really more, you can have a detached accessory apartment, you absolutely can. And that would be in the form of a garage or a barn, to which the accessory apartment is an integral part of that. So does what's shown here represent the accessory apartment as an integral part of the garage/barn structure? Which is where I kind of got stuck and said, you know what, above my pay grade, we'll just go to you guys.
What was the, what was the square footage? I understand it's 800 and it's 1,200 here, but you made mention of some square footage that they added to make it work.
And the existing garage is 576 per this drawing. They're adding 633 to make it a bigger garage. So you're at, what is
Right.
that, 11, almost 1,200?
Right.
1209
Right.
plus the 813 is 2022, and 50% of that is 1011, which is greater than the 813.
Right.
Oh, okay, so that's the
they're putting the
50%.
addition onto the
It
existing
must be a
garage
portion of the mainland,
and
no
then
more than
adding.
50% of the detached accessory structures such as, right.
And there was, I guess there's a state number of 768
Minimum.
Minimum,
You can't have an
Dwelling
apartment
size.
less than
The-
768.
The apartment, you can't live in anything under 768 square feet.
I don't want to miss a chance if there's anyone in the audience that has any thoughts. Any words of wisdom? No? Okay.
Kyle's words,
Yeah,
please.
Kyle?
I agree with most of the board. I think it's a great design. I mean, is an integral part or not, I don't know, but all the roofs are connected. There's a foundation connected. I don't see an issue with it personally, but yeah.
Okay. Does that help you?
It does, I mean,
You gotta
the-
go back to
Oh, I
Bill.
go on.
Yeah,
Sorry.
So what's to stop the applicant from just putting up a second garage or expanding the garage? And then, in a different form, just slapping on putting on an accessory apartment behind it?
That's kind of what this question is. So
Right,
he
but they're
could've-
doing it in one swoop, but what if they did it in two pieces? What's,
Oh, yeah. I mean, he could build this garage
you
addition
can build this
today.
garage, tomorrow, he doesn't need
Right,
any
and,
permits.
and so the total square footage would be, you know, almost 12,
Yeah,
and come a year from now,
he'd come
and
back,
ask to attach this, what we see here.
and
So,
we wouldn't even be having this discussion.
well, yeah, we would still
We
be
would
having the
because,
discussion. The only reason I'm asking you for this discussion is because of this. So this becomes the new garage, right here. So pretend this wall's not here.
yeah,
So that's the new garage, right? A year from now, he's already built this, he's got his tractor in it, all, you know, so he's had this garage and we don't know any different that this addition was popped on. It looks like one garage. And then he files with you to put in this.
yeah,
And there's no physical connection. The
oh,
the
okay.
foundation's a
All right.
butt, but you can't walk from here indoors, from here to here. So is this, how'd you see it here? Is this yellow blob an integral part of the white blob? Is the yellow blob
But
an
what if
integral part
what
of
if
the
she's
white
walking
blob?
through the garage into the house? So
Right.
the
I think
connection
it looks
is
more
like-
integral when you look at this, because
Yeah.
they've tied all the roofs
Right.
together.
But,
And
Okay.
it's structurally tied here with the deck and the foundations, like Kyle said, do a butt, though you can't go from one to another. So it's more just kind of
Right.
what your intent is. If this, I don't even think it's a question of, oh, but you're adding on the garage addition to kind of get there. Because you can, like you said, you can do that now and wait 6
Yeah.
months and apply.
you
It's-
could, but
it's-
you could,
Is it an
but
integral
they
part?
could share a wall if you tweak the plans a tad.
Yes.
They could share a wall.
That is possible.
So the, Aunt Mabel, to say whatever it was, to open up her door into the back of her garage and take one step and she'd be in her apartment.
Yes.
They could do that.
That is possible.
And they could also keep the overhang and the separate entrance, boom, boom. It's possible. I don't know
Right, so it's
if they
really
wanna
just.
go down that road for whatever reason, that's their call.
Well, the way that the house is set, it overlooks, we have a grass field that's mowed down to the pond. So she's always wanted the water view, so that's where the living area would be. She's at her kitchen sink, washing the dishes, making her dinner, she looks out the window, she sees the ducks.
Oh, I
and-
understand. So
Yeah.
it's the interior layout.
Right, at the interior layout, so if we flipped it, she would have the bedroom there, which,
Okay.
that would be, so that's kind of why the living structure and the layout is the way it is.
Now we're cutting to the chase here.
Mm-hmm.
Why we're having this discussion.
Yeah, so it's just about kind of the accessory apartment being kind of an integral part of the detached structure, which the detached structure is part of is the garage.
Because if you come out of that new garage bay, if you had a door at that wall, it would go into the storage area, not her apartment.
We'll go right well into the bedroom,
Into the, oh, the
or the
bedroom?
bathroom,
Oh, okay.
yeah, we'll go right into her
Oh,
bathroom.
it would be, okay.
Oh, this one right here, you
Yeah.
mean? Yeah,
Yeah, the thinking is she would park in one of these two spots and go
Park right in that
into the
middle bay.
kitchen and
Yep.
living area
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Right,
So
okay,
it is
okay.
possible to connect that, if board feels that that's an important thing to do. One of the reasons why we stepped this back a bit is because the grade slopes down significantly down this way. And so there's opportunity for a basement with some walkout storage, which we're gonna take advantage of here, not connected at all to the accessory apartment. And so we didn't wanna undermine the footing of the existing salt box garage by placing that right up against. So there's a lot of considerations in terms of, getting the water to shed on the roofs and getting the foundations to work and so forth in order to come up with this plan.
like I said, everything he said makes absolute sense. The question is, does it meet the intent of the bylaw? And I think really the kind of unifying thing is really kind of the roofs tying everything together. And if you think that's enough to kind of make it an integral part of kind of one overall structure, or you feel like what he's described here, kind of how it all flows and how it's designed to work, makes it an integral part of one detached garage structure, then you're good to go. If you don't, then they definitely need to know how they need to change this so that you think it meets the intent. So one or the other.
Again, I'll ask everyone else to speak. I feel like you certainly fulfill the intent of the law. I don't want you putting a door into a bathroom just to make us feel good.
Well,
That's not, the fact that you came in,
Yep.
is paramount to me, and that's what's supposed to happen, and I don't want anyone who's thinking of adding something in to think they're not gonna let me do anything creative, to use the space appropriately for me and for my,
Yep.
in-law apartment. And, I like it, and I appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
And it, for me, it meets the spirit of the law, and it's because of the situation. The roofs all connect, that's my 2 cents. But I'll ask everyone I mean, you need to get, somehow come up with a way that they know where people are when they dial 911, when the house is on fire. You know, if the stove's on fire, they need to know which stove to go to, that's.
And now, like I
that's
said,
what-
you'll see that, we'll have a 14B.
It's on you if you don't do it right.
Right.
That's most
Exactly.
important, but that's my personal opinion.
And
Do you
it's a-
want us
it's
to
a
vote, or
good
just
point.
weigh in, and then you think, what do we,
No, you're not gonna do a vote, but
Yeah.
do a straw poll.
okay, yeah, that's.
So you're
what I'm
good with the
saying.
way it is, or you want an adjustment, and if you want an adjustment, what adjustment do you
I
recommend?
appreciate you coming in.
So
That's
you're
all
good
you
with the
need.
way it is?
Yeah.
I would agree, as well that the spirit was there. Again, to connect something 5 feet, like it going into the bathroom, does not make sense. Doesn't have any negative impact that I can see the neighbors or the view, the look. Like you said, I think, yeah, I think it's fine. I don't think there's a need to
I'm
change
good with the way
it,
it is.
yeah.
I'm good with the way it is. I have a question, we just answered it as to what the storage area was, apparently it's underneath the
Yeah.
apartment.
Yeah, walk
And
out.
there's no way to access the storage from the apartment.
Okay.
Yep, all set.
Thank you.
No problem, looks like a roofing nightmare,
Yeah.
and a water flow nightmare, and a snow nightmare,
Yeah,
but
what are you gonna do with the water
your house.
there?
So
I'm
I
good
will
with-
have them officially file, and you will see them on July 15th.
Snow road.
Thank you.
It's complete, I'll go through it and then
If
share it.
anyone slid in for the 7:40 public hearing for Kayla Estates, that's been they have a request to continue that, and we are gonna continue it until the 1st of July at 7:25 PM. I know that.
So we gotta open that, and then we'll do that motion.
Right.
So we'll see you guys back on the 15th, and I will deal with you in the next day or two to make sure your application is complete and
Awesome.
get that filed.
Thank you very much.
Have
Thank
a
you
good
very
night.
much.
There's another
Appreciate your
final.
input.
We have another filing, that's a site plan waiver. Opinion,
Come on up, gentlemen.
PV Crossing, Building B.
What was the 7:40 new date?
7:40 is going to be continued to July 1st at 7:25 PM.
They requested that.
Yep.
Planning board time.
I wanted to let you know at 7:40, well, it's not bad, 7:45.
Yeah, you can call my office, actually, the day
I
of.
looked on this.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Alrighty, gentlemen.
So, my name is Davide Bruno, and he's my brother Marcello. We are both from Italy, and I moved here 10 years ago, and he's moving right now. And the idea was to open a pizza place here in town. We looked initially around, but then I went back thinking about it, and I really would like to do it in my town. So we looked around, and apparently the place that appeals better to us is this place in Pleasant Valley Crossing. The building B is my understanding is the last open place from phase 1, that's I think it was called. So it's right outside the Market 32, close to the dentistry that is there. It's a 1,200 square feet place, and we would like to, start small. We used to have a bigger place in Italy, but we want to start small. It's the first business that we open in U.S. So we would like to do pizza and sandwiches, all based on Italian products. We already have contacted a distributor and importer close to Boston for all products from Italy, and we are bringing over from Italy a brick oven that we contacted the company that used to work with us in Italy, and I think it would be a good thing to at least we work with things that we know. So it would be pizza, but would be sandwiches, and sandwiches also typical from different area from Italy. Now, we don't have, I'm sorry, we don't have a lot to show right now. Actually, I just talked to her today, and she told me, oh, tonight we have a meeting, okay? But that would be, you know, in our mind, it could be like a Italy map, Italy map with points in it, on the map where every sandwich is coming from. So there would be different bread for different areas, different cheese, different.
We should
all based on-
sample, like, you know.
There you go.
Sample it.
It's called payola.
Timing's everything, and hopefully it's positive. How are we doing? Yeah, when someone comes in to town, then comes before a board, that can be very threatening, and I don't want us to be threatening. We want new businesses in town. We have a challenge in Sutton that we're so residential, we get killed on taxes. So we created an overlay district. That's why we have the stuff that we have on 146. And we need, I personally want to encourage any and all businesses to come to Sutton. We want diversity. And as you were here prior, so basically what we do is ask people to come in, and again, I'll ask people to tell you what they think for what it's worth. Are there any challenges that we have?
Yeah, so what they need to know from you, so you can see up on the aerial, you see the roof of Market 32, and the number 27 is on the building where the pediatric dentist is right now. There's 1,200 square feet left in that building. That is a 4,000 square foot building in between Unibank, which is the roof up front, and the white roof, which is Market 32. So that's a 4,000 square foot building at 27. All but 1,200 square feet is occupied by the pediatric dentist / orthodontist. So that was originally permitted as just retail. The difference in the number of parking spaces based on their employee count, which they're anticipating about 4 employees, roughly 20 seats, that would get them up to about 11 spaces they would need. If you do retail, you're at 5 spaces. So there's a 6 space difference. Obviously, when we did the market had some extra spaces, not a ton extra, but it had extra spaces. And obviously, if you look at this, while during lunch, if they go hours of roughly 11 to 9, they would overlap with the pediatric dentist at lunchtime. They would not at dinner time, because the pediatrician, the dentist would be closed, and they'd have basically all of their spaces and these spaces. And you'll recall in the 146 overlay brilliantly, we said if you kind of share kind of off hours, we can reduce the number of required parking spaces by at least 25%. So you're really more like 3 spaces off, technically, and you're next to a grocery use that has extra spaces. So it was permitted for retail originally. They want to do restaurant. It is in the business district where they're both allowed. A restaurant is technically a special permit, and they do have special permits for restaurants at this location, just not at this site. So the question becomes, can they apply for a site plan waiver? Do they need a special permit that's specific to them at this location? Do they not? Or are the restaurant special permits that exist on this site enough? Can they waive the hearing for site plan review? Or do they have to go through the public hearing? Because obviously that affects timing with everything that they need to do and want to do in the leasing. They don't want to be leasing the space when they can't be in the space. So really they're just looking for permitting guidance relative to what they want to do. It's a fit, obviously, for the site. We have lots of pizza in Sutton, but like I told them, we have lots of pizza in Sturbridge, but we have Enrico's Pizza in Sturbridge, which is the only brick oven pizza, and it's busy every night of the week, though all of the other pizza joints are too. But it's a unique product, and you've heard what he's described. And frankly, you can't pick and choose restaurants. Restaurants are allowed. You can't pick, I like this one, I don't like this one. But in terms of viability, It is a slightly different product than we have in other pizza places. And it is more than pizza, like you said, sandwiches from over Italy and blah, blah, blah. So, where are they with permitting? They need your direction to tell them, can they apply for a site plan waiver at your very next meeting and bring any more details you think they need? Do they need to go through the site plan hearing? Do they need a special permit hearing for this restaurant use, or can they just utilize special permits for restaurants you've granted on the site proper that aren't in use? What do you think?
Go ahead, Kyle. Full stomach rent is done. Yes, he makes this
He's only
decision.
been on the board for like, what, how long now?
Not long.
Months.
We put their feet right to the fire.
I love the idea. I love pizza. Not gonna lie, big pizza
And didn't
guy.
eat supper.
And I didn't eat supper, so now my stomach's going. As for permitting and stuff, I don't think I know enough of, like, I don't know what the special permits they already have there, what those entail, what those, I would say, personally, I'd like to see you guys get in there sooner than later, personally. So I don't wanna hold you up at all, but I'm gonna defer to longer standing members on the permitting side of things.
Go ahead, Mike.
I would say agree, I certainly agree, I think it sounds like a really interesting concept. And, you know, I wish you well on that. The permitting piece, again, I have to wait as some of you guys, what you think as well on that of whether it's needed or not. I mean, certainly was the anticipation that there would be food restaurant places within that development. As of now, and I don't believe anything else is, you know, stepped up that I know of, so that if this one could be that, be first one, yeah.
There's a hard line you can take and there's a soft line you can take.
Yeah.
Don't we already have three, and at least three that I can think of off the top of my head
And of course, when you had the,
in phase one?
what do you call it, the public hearings for those special permits, you could point and go, this is gonna be a Five Guys, this is gonna be, but like you'll remember, there was one, this will probably be a Japanese restaurant, that one never went forward. I don't know if that's ever gonna go forward. That was supposed to be in building D or B, you know, across, on the other end of Starbucks,
Yeah.
that end. So will that move forward or not? So you were, during the hearing, you were pointing, this was here, and we kind of weighed the parking lots in the area, which is why I kind of brought up the parking in this area, to say, I don't think there's a big deficiency here, so you could at least have some comfort here. So, I mean, we were pointing to spaces, we were talking about specific uses, but we did grant for Pleasant Valley Crossing Phase 1 and Phase 3 restaurant special permits. And the restaurant special permit on Phase 3, for instance, was not a specific restaurant, it was up to a 5,500 square foot restaurant. The restaurant in Building B that may or may not go was not a specific restaurant, it was restaurant space up to so many square feet. I believe Five Guys, we knew Five Guys and Starbucks, we did know those when they were permitted. So there are permits on this whole site. The question is, do you think there's a public purpose or a permitting issue if you allow something that somebody pointed to and said, yeah, that's 4,000 square feet of retail. If you allow 1,200 square feet of it to be restaurant, when over on another part, a section that was supposed to be restaurant may never be restaurant, it might be retail instead, all part of the same project. Is that an issue? Is there a public purpose to having a public hearing and talking about flip-flopping this? Do you think that specific use needs a specific special permit, or just for the project as a whole, you know, we make sure the right permits are out there for the project as a whole?
I have a question. Are we talking beer and wine down the road, or is it?
Yeah, pizza and beer, I think.
Because the only reason I bring that up is, you know, pizza places are rather, if I'm not incorrect, they're rather benign. They drop off the bread in the morning, they grab some produce, there's no real deliveries, but if you start,
They go next door.
yeah, or if you have, but now if you have a beer and wine, you're talking about a delivery truck pulling in at certain times, you might need another entrance. I think that could be more of an issue, that's my only.
Though Tony's does have beer and wine as well.
Right, Tony's also has several entrances.
Yeah, they definitely have.
And a ton of parking. I mean, I suspect, is there just one entrance? I can't see
There is two.
is there one in the back, on the side?
Yeah, you got a few. Oh, until that space, you mean? Front and back?
Yeah.
Back
Yeah.
door and front?
And is there
Yeah.
access to it? The truck could pull up, or?
Yeah.
I can't see.
Yeah, they'd probably be loading right through the front door if you have beer and wine. I doubt they'd be coming around the back, but
No, it's not really on the back, it's on the side.
it's on the side? Yeah, so they pull up the side and enter through the
If
side.
that'll work, I don't have a problem with it as far as the parking goes, and I don't have a problem as far as the permits go. But just the site planning, you know, just in case there's an issue with deliveries, that's it.
Mary?
But if you say it's okay, I can't see it. I'm all in.
You're killing me.
What do you think, man?
I don't think, it's, like,
can bring out the site plan.
specifically that we need to do a special permit, maybe like clean up the language on the whole thing, like it, these are the usages that are allowed within this plaza,
Mhm.
and just leave it at that.
Kinda like we did with Chris Wendell's industrial thing.
Right,
You
yeah.
can have any of these uses in
Yeah,
this
these
plaza.
are allowed here,
And we'll
and,
look at the parking as we
yeah,
go.
we won't have to put everyone through this.
Paul?
I don't have any overall issues with it. I mean, gives a little variety to the plaza. I think there is probably plenty of parking. There's a bunch of parking up next to the package store.
Mhm.
It always seems to be pretty empty.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Next to the wine beer end
Next
of
to
the
wine
market.
beer entrance, you know, and they already have delivery trucks in there, you know,
Good.
so for the package store.
There's a
So
package
they
store
wing a
down there?
couple of cases over to you. What's the-
Not the package store, it's the wine and beer
Oh,
arm
wine
of
and
the
beer
market.
emporium at the Market 32.
Oh, really? I've never done that.
I'm left, thank you for coming in. And I'll ask the public, well, personally, I would like to see you move forward fast and not with any hindrances or hoops to jump through, because I think it's a fit. I can't lie, I've never been in the plaza, but I don't shop anywhere, so that's me.
Doesn't have a
But
cell
I
phone,
assume
maybe
it's
doesn't
doing
eat.
well, they see cars when I go by, and if you're, I think it would be a good fit. I recognize that there's plenty of places to get pizza in Sutton and in the Blackstone Valley, so you have to raise the bar, you've gotta be something a little bit different. And if you're having a beer and wine, I'm not coming, but that's me, personally, so, I think waiving site plan review, I don't wanna micromanage this thing, I want it to be wildly successful. I haven't seen any cars backed up onto the highway because anyone's doing that much business, so there's no safety reason to have site plan review or do anything like that. I'd encourage you to move forward, that's me personally. Does that help you?
Very much, I guess.
So, have them fill out a site plan waiver application and just show up at your next meeting with the waiver application, and you want me, Bill, do you want me to have that section of the site plan so you can see how they can get in with deliveries?
Nope,
You know,
I believe you.
and also, this wasn't, people wouldn't know that you were here, but if there's someone here from the public that would like to speak or address this, or anyone that's in the audience that wants to throw in 2 cents or has an idea they wanna share with you, I'd give them that opportunity. Thanks for coming in, good timing. There'll be lots of other hoops to jump through.
So call me or come see me tomorrow, we'll fill out the form,
Okay.
you'll come to the next meeting, we'll double check between now and the next 2 weeks and make sure you have really good access for deliveries.
Yeah, public hearing.
And then we can potentially get you scheduled with the Board of Selectmen so you can talk to them about your beer and wine. So you can see if that works or doesn't work. And then the board can vote, they'll vote that, we'll schedule it on their next agenda, vote it at the next meeting, and you're done with us.
Well, let's do it quick.
All done with us after that.
Sorry about that.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Good luck.
Have a good night, gentlemen.
7:10, public hearing continued on Wedgewood Farm, Osby Road. Do you have a notice, do we have to read, or?
No, you do not.
Okay, we'll just read, the hearing has been open, so we're just.
Right, so we've kind of got 3 things to focus on tonight. First, I'd be interested to hear kind of where we stand with the Conservation Commission on this project, then we can look at my memo with some of the open items, and then we have some waivers to continue voting.
And I'm aware of the fact there's an 8 o'clock public hearing, so I'll ask you to move
Continued as well,
fast.
yes.
Say you don't want it.
Yeah, I know.
Try to talk fast to get faster than
Yeah,
what it
well,
is.
if it gets lengthy, if you can get to the
Okay.
point, that'd be good, otherwise we'll ask you to
Um,
step back and we'll do the 8 o'clock hearing at 8:15 or 8:30, and
Okay.
if it's gonna be long and drawn out.
Okay, no, I'll do
'Cause
my
I
best.
try to keep it on track.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
impossible.
okay, appreciate that.
Yeah.
Good evening, Randy Waterman from Compton Property Development, and here for the continued hearing on Wedgewood Farm, which is located on Ormsby Road, and it is a 93-unit CCRC, Continued Care Retirement Community, which is active adult housing, and these would be in cottage-style homes.
How's it been doing business in Sutton? If you don't mind me asking.
Fantastic.
Okay,
Yeah, it's been great.
it's important to hear.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
So really, our last meeting with you was on May 20th, and we started to go through the waiver list and kind of ran out of time at the end of that meeting, so I was hoping maybe we could still hit a few of the key ones and we could finish them at the next meeting. And then in the meantime, Jen has submitted a new letter as of Friday with a couple of additional sort of new comments on the revised plans that we submitted. So I think I can address those tonight to you. And then I think you were looking for an update on the filing of the notice of intent with the Conservation Commission.
Yeah,
Um,
what's the news there?
Yeah, that's the only thing we haven't filed yet. We have the application now complete. We have figured out the fees. It took us almost a week to actually get through their entire bylaw and calculate the fees. And unfortunately, the number came to $66,000. So that was why we went, oops, there's gotta be some alternative here. So we've talked to the agent for the commission yesterday, just to see, cause part of that 30,000 of that was his review fee for working the riverfront. And he said that is excessive. Ordinarily, he would charge less. So we're gonna get, I think, some reductions there and be able to file, I think it will go in by this coming Friday. So that is imminent and will go in very shortly. So that will start the Conservation Commission review. They'll have a 2-week advertisement, and then we'd have our first hearing. So any of the input that you've given us on waivers, that type of thing is helpful, just so we know that what's on the plan where we're not, necessarily conforming with the dimensional requirements, we're still on target.
Does the Conservation Board meet every 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Yes.
They do, okay, so mid-July.
Yeah.
Would be, okay,
Every Wednesday, or every other Wednesday.
okay.
So really, the main thing I wanted to try and do is get through a couple of waivers, but if you want, do you want to just talk about your letter, and some of those are
Just
quick?
see if we have any input from the board on anything.
Okay.
All right, so there's not a ton of stuff in here, and there's actually a whole section that is in here that should not be in here. Okay, so I keep saying the ADA trail, but the handicap accessible trail
Yep.
is labeled constructed of organic material. Just want to be careful with the labeling on that.
Yep.
That it is a firm compacted material. It doesn't necessarily need to be paved or anything, but it needs to not be the crushed stone that's specified elsewhere, because in particular, walkers, wheelchair wheels just digs into crushed stone, and it's a bad thing.
Yeah,
So we just need to be careful with
Yeah, so
how
in the
that's-
cover letter that we submitted at the last meeting, we actually said that we would make that trail accessible. And so just to respond to that question, we added your exact language to the plan, so that's just so that you can see that it's already on the plan, and we've made that change, so.
Nice.
We've listed
Cool.
it to be ADA and AAB compliant.
Right, so the first one and the second one are both that comment.
Yep.
I would recommend that maybe as we get ready to vote this next set of waivers, that we either do a vote or maybe a general statement that, which we've done before, that the Route 146 overlay bylaw, there are many, many provisions in the Route 146 overlay bylaw that are really intended to address projects like Pleasant Valley Crossing or multiple structure industrial projects. They're just not applicable to residential development or to single building commercial or industrial developments. And we've seen that in a few cases where we just say, look, anything we don't grant a waiver for by the end of this, we consider not applicable to this particular type of development. So I would recommend at some point during the waiver process, maybe when we're all done, we say, look, anything that we haven't granted a waiver for, it's just not applicable to residential development within the overlay district. And as you know, half of this site, or the front 2 pods of housing, are in the 146 overlay, and those rear 2 pods are outside the 146 overlay, because it's only business zoned, that's in the 146 overlay. So that's just a comment. If you agree with that, then I'll just make sure we get that done at some point during the waivers.
Good planning.
I concur. I agree.
I just wanted, again, we need to kind of look at section VIJ2 of the bylaws, and you do have several sets of the bylaws in front of you there. If anybody wants to flip or go on your iPad to the bylaws to that section. And I just want to make sure that, have Randy describe the services available to residents, and make sure you believe he's in compliance with the regulations, that he's provided what the regulations seem to intend, in terms of the development. So it's section VIJ, so I'll go there as well, of the bylaws. And so you're going to the continued care community regulations, and then you're going to section 2.
Page 113. At least mine anyway.
So, Bill, if you, I just want, just read the general statement about services in there, kind of what we'll provide for, this is painful, this one I have to scroll. I
You want
can't-
someone to read it?
Yes, that'd be good.
Huh? Would you like someone to read it?
Yes.
What section?
Here, let me point it out.
You got it right here. Go
Under
ahead.
section 3 is where they have the types of dwellings and facilities permitted.
Section 2 is, I think, what I want you to read.
Section 2?
That's under definition.
Yeah.
Okay, so start with the program of in-house services under section 2 definitions.
The program of in-house services.
Yes. See it?
Oh, resident services.
Yeah.
Offered by a CCRC shall be primarily for the benefit of residents and their guests and shall include a majority of the following: restorative care, skilled nursing, transportation services, financial assistance, barber, beautician, medical evaluation, healthcare maintenance, home health, assisted care, adult daycare and respite care services, food services, cleaning services, exercise, recreational, educational, and social services, other services, activities, and accessories uses incidental to the operation of a continued care development as individually approved at the discretion of the planning board.
Keep going. Oh, that was the whole end of the section?
There's a little bit more.
Okay.
In-house services may only be provided to residents and their guests and may not display exterior advertising. The program of an in-house services offered by the CCRC shall be specified in the special permit application, and the scale of each service shall be in proportion to the number of dwelling units in the CCRC and subject to approval by the planning board.
So one of the questions is, and now, this is a big bylaw, this CCRC bylaw. So, when you read that definition, it seems to suggest that no matter whether you choose independent living, or congregate housing, or assisted living, or restorative care, that there shall be a palette of services that shall include the majority of the following. Now, there may be, and Randy's really good with language here, and pulling apart the language, we're gonna just throw it over him. There may be sections of the bylaws that kind of conflict that, or kind of add to that. So I just want us to all, make sure we're all on the same page with what services or what is provided on this site, or whether specific actual services need to be provided in this type of CCRC, which we all know is an independent living CCRC. So, if you wanna.
Sure. So essentially, this is under the Continued Care Retirement Committee. This is a definition, and it says that you need to provide services within a CCRC. And then as you go to the part after what you just read, Kyle, was section 3 now defines the different sections in more detail. So the first section of that is independent living retirement housing is what we're proposing. So you can imagine for independent housing you're not gonna have a dental office in the building or a beautician or something like that. But as you step down to the other paragraphs, congregate housing, assisted living facilities, you would have those types of facilities. So it looks to me what they've done up on the top is they've listed the full menu of things that could be in any one of these categories. But clearly, and it says it right in independent living, this housing typically may offer on-site support services. Doesn't say it's absolutely required. And you can imagine that in a typical senior housing like we're proposing, which is active adult, you're not gonna have those medical services on site. So we don't propose those medical services. They're not normal in an independent living style project. They would be in congregate and assisted living, and you get more and more services. So we have submitted a list of what we are proposing in the last submission document that we sent in and also in the first one. But, so basically, these are gonna be private roads, and they're gonna be privately maintained landscape. So the landscaping, the mowing, the mulching, pruning, irrigation, snow removal from roads and sidewalks, driveways, the refuse removal, the trash removal, that's all gonna be part of the package. And again, this is a homeowners association to guarantee that these things happen. Exterior building maintenance, those are listed there. Professional management services would be part of the homeowners, as well as a master insurance policy. So we list several things on our list that aren't necessarily on this master list, and this is heavily, pushed towards medical services, home health, assisted care, adult daycare, food services. Those are things you would not ordinarily see in this type of project. So I believe we meet the intent of the definition and the next section on types of dwellings and facilities permitted under the independent living. And again, that does say those services may be offered, doesn't say absolutely are required in every one of these. So I believe that in that respect, we do conform to that regulation.
Yeah, and so for me, it's rectifying those two sections, where one section says, shall include a majority of the following, no matter what kind it is. It shall include a majority of the following. And the second section, which Randy just read you, which says, we may allow these. So when I think of services, I think more of the walking trails.
Mm-hmm.
That would fit into exercise, recreational, that is on this list of things that you shall provide a majority of. So the community garden plot, that's another service for independent living, as opposed to lawn care and things like that, which are kind of normal in a condominium project, whether it's a CCRC or not. So what I was looking for was more services, amenities that are available to the residents in these projects that meet the intent of an independent living. So you don't, like Mr. Waterman said, you wouldn't have necessarily a home health aide in an independent living setting, though you might have, the management company might maintain a list of home health aid agencies in the area if somebody's got a rotator cuff surgery, or you can live here when you're 90. We hope you do. We hope you don't age out of the community and you move in here. So maybe the management company of the homeowners association, those people maintain a list of home health aid agencies in the area, or blah, blah, blah. So I'm just trying to rectify what one section says, you shall include the majority of these, and the definition of independent living, which says, yeah, you may include these things, but it doesn't make sense for a homeowners association in particular to maintain, as was noted, a barber and a beautician on site, or even schedule one to come into the community once a month in this particular type of living environment. So what I was really looking for was kind of for Randy to kind of go out there and go, all right, now we're not gonna have a barber or beautician or a medical evaluation or home health aides. Our management company may keep a list of those that are available should anybody wanna reach out and needs those for any reason. But in return, in this assisted living, here's what we are providing. We are providing just confirmation of what it says here, designed to be barrier-free. These units shall be designed to be barrier-free, and he did address that a little bit. And so that's one amenity, but we're having walking trails, we're having a bocce court, those are services that I was kind of looking for, the connection to the bookstore, if you're gonna do that, and blah, blah.
Yep, we've
You know,
connected the path. to
So that's kind of what I was looking for, this palette of services that shall be a majority of that list. And I suppose you could have a whole bunch of exercise things here. And the bocce court and the community gardens fits into the other services as designated by you guys. So I'm really kind of laying out, this is the CCRC, so we're not gonna have these things, but here's the list, other than the management of the condos, which you're gonna get at the villas or Woodburyville or anywhere else, that's a condo, that are amenities to this particular CCRC and fit that active living style. So that's kind of what I was looking for, and I thought if you could give us a decent list of that, that's more than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 long, so more than 5 amenities long. You've just given us a majority of services, but they're targeted to your active adult project.
Okay.
Those were my thoughts on that.
Jen, where exactly is this line may?
May?
I see the shall.
Yeah, there's a shall and a may,
I see
yeah.
the
So
shall.
there's a shall in the definition, but as Mr. Waterman read, in section 3, under the definition of independent living retirement housing, which is what he's building, it says,
From the bottom.
this housing typically may offer on-site supportive services, and those would be things like the home health aides if you need them, or the medical call-in.
Yeah, so we are doing, so it says specific, typically may offer on-site supportive services and is designed to be barrier-free, yes, we're doing that. May include emergency call features, I think the fire department wants that as well, and complemented by housing management and maintenance. So we are doing all those things that are listed specifically in that paragraph.
Okay.
So he kind of needs to detail that, you know, in terms of the barrier-free, or all like in a list. Just give it to us in a list, make it count up to more than 5, and I would go outside the maintenance end of things, even though it says maintenance here. You can see the intent up above is not so much, we're gonna mow your lawn and leaf blow for you, but these are the services we're gonna offer to you, the resident, if you live here, or the amenities.
I think one that you could add, that what I'm thinking about, what you've already talked about, is for transportation services, is having that little cutout area where
The
cars can
kiosks
drop
that
you
we
off.
have out in the
You know,
front, 2 of those, yeah.
Right, I mean, that's helping
and
out
that's-
transportation for people,
Yeah.
central meeting place to drop a car and off, so
Great
I
point.
would think you could add that in.
Senior center bus
Great.
line up and all that
So,
stuff,
Yeah.
and so I just need agreement from you, kind of that you agree if he kind of takes, that's a way to kind of bridge what seems inconsistent between those
I
two
would-
sections.
It's a, and really, thank you for a good job. It's a first for us, for me, and I assume everyone else on the board. Kinda like the accessory apartment,
Yep.
kinda like making people plant trees. We should have something that lets us, look at it when it's all done, because it's not on purpose, but sometimes we do things, we don't make plans that end up, it doesn't make sense, and it's counterproductive.
Right.
So, I'd encourage you to move forward as Jen is instructing you, but somehow have some language, once this whole thing is built and filled to your wildest expectations, if there's something else that we should have addressed tonight, I wanna have some language that lets us go into, we might just mention something I didn't think of, maybe there's something else that we're not thinking of. And then the accessory apartment, we reviewed it and we changed it
Mhm.
to make it work. Maybe there'll never be another one of these facilities in Sutton, I don't know. But, this is a first, your type is
Yeah,
different.
yep, yep.
So it's new.
So if you agree he has the wiggle room, that he doesn't have to hire a barber or beautician,
No,
then if you agree there's some wiggle room, then I think Randy and I can work together to come up with a list that meets the intent.
I think
That,
it's not a full-blown CCRC.
it's not, no, well, no, it's
Well,
not
and you should
That
put on
could
your
include different
bylaw
things.
to-do list, to change that shall to may.
yeah,
for
or,
the-
or be more specific to each type. Like in this type, we're not gonna
Dependent upon,
automatically offer that.
Depending upon the type of
or
CCRC, may
the
include
levels of the CCRC,
Language
may be
adjustment.
necessary.
language adjustment.
Okay,
It's more housekeeping.
And on
for
top
the
of it,
next
if
town.
it's a full-blown CCRC, these items here will be necessary for people to buy into it. They want those there.
mhm,
I don't think it's the intent for us to force them down your throat, because
right. Randy and I can handle 5E together and make sure we agree on the language for earth removal and get in the appropriate permits at apps if we need them.
We went
Yes.
through that language already at one point in time.
Okay.
We can
We'll figure
definitely
it
do that
out.
again, yep.
And then 6C, we'll get into in the waiver discussion. We don't need that special permit section, because we already voted the use special permit, so you can ignore that whole paragraph.
No, actually, I think you do.
Well, we have the Route 146 overlay is the only special permit still to vote, right?
Right.
And that has its own criteria.
So you did the CCR, the use special permit
Yep.
last time, the next one would be the Route
146.
146 overlay,
And that has
and then
its-
site plan review.
Yep, so this one you don't need anymore. 146 has its own criteria, so we'll be measuring against that criteria. And then I think this was just a typo, this general note, that part of what was turned in the other day shows the affordable number still at 9, and I know you were proposing more than that.
Yeah, and I corrected that table
So.
today, so that you would have
Excellent.
evidence that that was changed already.
Perfect. So now it's just waivers, and I don't think they'll actually take as long as you think, because I think there's a few we don't need. So if you wanna look at waivers, we can do that. So you have a letter in your past files. It is dated March 2019, revised May 2019. We've already voted the first one for the site plan review fee, and hopefully the Concom will follow suit. We've already voted the setback one.
We skipped over the fourth one because it's sort of just quoting that you.
Yeah, we don't need that.
Yeah, so I don't think
So-
that one really is applicable.
Right. That 4J, that's just kind of a directive paragraph, it's not an actual provision. So 5E is weird, we will vote that one,
We
just
did.
so it's clear. Well, we voted the 20%, but we didn't vote reduction of the total area over which vegetation, well, that's kind of general. Work in the buffer area isn't our purview, that's the Concom's purview. So I would say we're done with what we can on 5E, which is the last one on that page, unless you think something needs to be voted.
No, I think they voted the last.
They voted work on over 15%.
Okay,
at
so
the
just
last
that piece of it.
Right,
I got you.
exactly.
Okay.
6C fees, we already, this is the one where I already wrote why I think you should not waive this. You can give an argument why you think it should be reduced or waived. I'll have to throw myself on the table if they go to waive the whole thing. So, again, this is active adult. However, if you've spent time at the senior center, and I know Mr. Wally can speak to it directly, he's on our Council on Aging, our senior center is awesome. Our senior center has a program of services that are just multi-generational. And, they offer trips to people of all ages. They have a ukulele group, which is just too cool for words. They do programs for all ages, and they really want to bring in all community members, not just seniors, because it enriches the operation of the center. So, so when we think of a senior center, in Sutton anyways, it's not, 90-plus-year-olds sitting around in rocking chairs playing bingo or mahjong. It's just not. And when we crafted this bylaw, we really thought it was important, very much so for projects that have the 80 and 90-year-olds, again, which we hope this community will have, actually, but also for active adult communities as well, the lower end of the scale, to show their support of a very important community resource for all ages, and particularly from the 60-year-old upset that we do so well servicing with the Sutton Senior Center. And so, I can't, I said it in my email, I really don't think you should waive this. I've had discussions with the Council on Aging Director, and she's detailed again and again how many programs really are not, just for, not only are not just for people 80 and 90 and up, but are encouraged for everybody of all ages in the community to take part in, especially, and that she would love to, if a community like this is established in Sutton, she would love to do specific marketing and outreach to this community to kind of pull them in and get them playing the ukulele and volunteering in the food pantry, whose use in the food pantry is almost exclusively young families and not seniors. And so yeah, that's my thought.
It's also, and you can speak to this, I'm sure, but good planning, we had from the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission discussion.
Yep.
And we're aware of the fact that there's a bubble growing in Sutton, and it's not young families moving in with kids. It's this guy. I'm not that old yet. The number, what were the numbers of people who are over?
The median age in the Commonwealth is 39. We're at 44 and a half.
Yeah, as I
This
say,
is
it's
without your-
climbing, it's the highest
It's
segment
Sutton.
right now, 20%, I think, of your population is
Yeah, so
over.
you're
Yeah, this is the
targeting the
right
highest.
product for it,
You've
but,
got the right product here.
yep,
And
Built now.
they're projecting it's gonna grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where the growth is gonna be, so there
Yeah.
probably won't be a new school, but then I might be an addition going on the
senior
senior
center,
center.
something like that, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's busting at the seams.
Yeah. Well, I guess my response, you gave us some new information on Friday, essentially, that you have talked to the director of the senior center. And she's certainly still recommending that we, keep this fee in place. And, it's not something that I could say today, there's any way I can prove that nobody's gonna use the senior center. Obviously, some people are, there'll be some people that use a lot, some people use it less. So I would say at this point, you've been very fair on everything else we've talked about, so let's just leave it the way it is. We will pay the fee.
It's $100 a unit.
Yeah, it sounds
It's
like not a lot,
doable.
but when you add up all the other fees that now that are just hitting us at the same time, another 10 grand almost, it's like one more, so, but let's just leave it as, we'll withdraw that request for a waiver, and we will leave the fee as it is, as it was stated in the regulations.
Until the pizza guys show up tomorrow.
I'm also on the COA, and I appreciate the statement you just made. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to see Jen throw herself on a table.
All right, smart Alec. All right, this 4C1, so we voted that next one, 4A3, we already voted that, for work on slopes over 15%. The next one, 4C1C, this is one of those that I believe is not applicable in this type of development. The development shall contain you'll remember, this was very applicable in Pleasant Valley Crossing. You have multiple retail structures, you want a pedestrian path linking the retail structure so you can park your car here and walk the pedestrian path to here. And we actually see that, or I see that quite a lot between certain of the structures inside of Pleasant Valley Crossing, people dodging out in front of me on the crosswalk when I'm pulling out of Market 32 because they're running over to grab a burger before they get back in their car and go. So, or whatever, coffee or whatever, which is fine, just run faster. But, so I don't think this is applicable. So if you read that just real briefly, if you don't think that's applicable, this is one of those things I don't think we should grant a waiver for because it's just not applicable to begin with. So when we're done voting the waivers, we should just say, anything we haven't granted a waiver for is not applicable
Under the CCR.
under the,
for
CC for this particular CCRC project.
For the Route 146, really.
Overlay.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, the only reason we actually asked for it is because it says a hard surfaced and at least 6-foot wide path.
Right.
And we don't wanna do paved paths through the woods.
Right.
We specifically don't wanna make it 6 feet wide. We're in the buffer zone.
Right.
And, so we don't want that extra
Right.
impervious. So that's why we asked for a waiver.
Right,
But
and the
if
fact
you
is,
did a-
the intent was never residential.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
you could always say, you know what, doesn't matter if it applies or not, we're gonna grant you a waiver to the walking paths you shown on the plans.
Yeah.
And just call it done, so you could grant the waiver and not have to, but I don't want to, I think we, like the last bylaw we talked about, we need to maybe adjust some language in the Route 146 overlay, because we didn't envision residential. We were envisioning commercial and industrial development when we did that overlay.
Yeah,
We weren't envisioning residential development. But the fact is, there may be, besides this one, more coming down the line, so you want the reg to fit.
Jen, it's 8:30.
Mhm.
We've made good progress. I have someone that was here at 8 and has been very patient.
Okay.
I'm not saying how much longer do you think should we ask you to step aside and come back, or?
Finish up.
Just a few minutes.
By all means, take your time, finish up.
Yeah, that's,
2
okay,
minutes. 2 minutes away.
thank
A few
you.
minutes?
We're gonna have to continue anyway, so we're not gonna
That's
finish
what I-
Okay.
anything tonight.
So, so non-applicable, or you wanna just grant his waiver and allow him dirt walking paths, even though this doesn't really
No,
apply?
not applicable.
Not applicable? Okay, next one, one entrance and one exit. Again, this was really designed for a commercial development. You don't want multiple entrances on the street. So I believe this is also not applicable.
Right.
The next one, site plan, meet the
Then we just jump to
requirements.
the subdivision regs.
Yep.
You wanna call that the stopping point, and we'll can pick that up then at the next.
Well, is there any of, well, actually, no, let's knock out this, because we do have an email from Jeff, we can knock this one out
Yeah,
real
the
quick.
first one, we voted conditionally on Jeff reviewing our turning templates,
So,
which he has
I
done.
don't have a conditional. But you have an email from Jeff saying he has no issue with their turning and no issue with that center line radius. So I think you should vote, 4A to F, which is the next one that says the minimum center line radius shall be 270. A waiver to allow center line radius of less than 270 in accordance with the approval of our consulting engineer and the fire chief. Because you have both of those now. So there's no other reason to withhold that waiver. You have the two authorities on that weighed in.
So moved.
Second.
MS,
And that's a copy of all those, just so you
Yep,
have it as well.
so you see-
He had the
Any
final
comments
one.
from the board? Any comments from the public? Hearing now a call for vote, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Good.
okay, we granted the width already.
Yep.
That's all granted.
You granted the section 1VA 2K streets, the location alignment, I had yes on that.
Yep, we granted everything on
And
this.
the next one, the width as well?
Yep.
Okay, I just had that.
Granted that. And then, yeah, we did grant, yes, we granted the width. And then dead-end streets, this is just interpretation.
Yeah, I think we.
Interpretation, I would recommend a waiver in this case just because there really aren't, in reality, any dead-end streets in this project. But not because there's pavement in big circles everywhere, but because there are those grass paved connections and a connection to an emergency access drive. So I had a question for you, is that a done deal? You being able to connect to that drive, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, good.
I met directly with the board of directors for the
That was-
villas. And so we're working through some language that would spell it out, but
So you see no issues with
no,
that?
at this point I don't, but
So-
I don't have anything in writing today.
So I would say, just to make it cleaner, voting a waiver from these sections, basically stating that, he's getting a waiver from these dead-end road links because of the use of grass paved connections and connecting to the villa's emergency access drive, there functionally are no dead ends.
And those have all been reviewed and approved by the fire department.
And then we'll tie a condition in the subsequent approvals to that to say those connections have to be maintained year-round,
Year-round,
24 hours a day.
so they get plowed.
Sounds like Bill just made that motion.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments from the board?
Nope.
From the public? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained.
And Graves has to comment on all the rest before we should vote them,
Okay.
except for those
Good
last
job.
ones, but I don't think those are critical.
Under pressure. Good half hour.
Thank
Came in
you.
prepared. Thank you. All right. I don't want you to be disappointed.
Thank you for
Thanks
bringing
for
all
coming
that.
in.
Deva. All right.
All right, continuation.
Oh, yeah, we need a motion to continue.
So moved. And what's the,
Darn it. Let me grab that sheet of paper.
July 17th,
We're going to,
July 1st or.
let's go to July 17th already has 3 public hearings, so where are you gonna be with Concom is the key, cause this board
We
isn't
won't
gonna.
have opened a hearing on July 1st with them certainly, because if we just now file, they have to have 2 weeks'
All right.
notice, so it'll be.
So you're either going to the 8 o'clock spot on July 15th, which is probably more like 9, or you're going to the first spot on August 5th.
Can we leave July 15th then, at whatever time is fine, and we'll just, if for some reason we haven't gotten anything done yet, we'll ask for
Push it.
continuance in advance.
Cause you're the last item, yeah.
Okay,
So July 15th at 8 o'clock.
okay.
And who was the motion? Wally? 7:15, 8 PM. Second was
I can,
Mike. Vote
all
was,
those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Good job.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you for your time.
We're up, IBA.
All right. 8 o'clock planning board time. This is a
Alright.
continued hearing for 103 Gilmore Drive. We've got a few final issues to address. Jen has a memo, and then what we plan on doing is closing the hearing and taking a vote. We can probably do it before 9 o'clock if things go smooth. There is no
vote right
Bruins
now, I
game,
won't
there
even
is no
announce.
basketball game, but still.
Feel free to take the vote right now.
Oh, you gotta jump through the hoops. All right. You can
All
identify
right.
yourself for all the millions on TV.
Absolutely. Yep, for the record, my name is Brian Melissi with Bingham Associates, representing IBA and RP Mass Yellow. And again, with me is Bob Bilzio, Vice President of IBA. Thank you.
How are we doing so far?
We're doing great. No, I do believe, we gave you some information the last time we were here. I believe at the last hearing, 2 of the 3 special permits were approved. The use special permit was approved, what was the second? The common driveway special permit was approved. And what we have, ready to, hopefully finish up would be the Route 146 overlay district special permit and site plan approval. We did give some information the night of that hearing, and I do believe there's maybe just a couple of things to go over.
Yep.
And,
So you have a memo that looks long, dated June 14th. Did I give you a copy of that?
Did-
Excellent. So if you wanna just go through, we can kinda discuss it
Sure.
and just run through everything.
So the first one of the general comments was people like confirmation that items 8, 18, and 19 from Green's review letter has been resolved to the satisfaction. So number 8 had to do with the open space requirements from the zoning of this. Yep, so I have a copy of the A&R plan. We have a 20-acre lot, of which almost 10 acres has already been set aside as open space. So really, we have 50%, much more than 3,500.
You'll recall, instead of doing lot by lot, or some of you will recall, not all of you, instead of doing open space lot by lot in the park, we did as the park as a whole, in terms of what made sense for overall development as like a master plan. So,
So,
and you landed up with most of it.
Exactly. When my site plan, Whitman Bingham site plan references the booking page for the A&R plan, as well as we provided copies for the file, both to Jenny and to Jeff Walsh over at Graves. The second one had to do with just the tying the final ball around the stormwater, actually 18 and 19 have to do with tying the final ball around the stormwater system. And we had provided that information, and I believe in Jeff's last email, he had said that we took, the original plan had 3 recharge areas. We went out and did some soil testing, found some quote-unquote unsuitables out the back, so what we did is we kind of combined a couple of the recharge areas, and I believe Jeff said he was fine with that in his latest letter. And again, if there's anything to be wrapped up, I can certainly reach out to him, but I do believe we are all set with stormwater. So moving right along, Roman numeral 4B, the parking and loading. The board may remember at the last hearing, we talked about the quote-unquote, the bump outs in the parking lot to the north of the building.
On the
I
north
don't have
side.
to keep running the site plan if I don't have to. Oh, so what we, Jen had brought up the fact that we owe you a final calculation for our interior landscaping. And after we pulled the bump outs out, and actually was able to reduce some of the paving by a little bit because I was able to condense a couple of spots in that area, we really went from 8.8% of interior landscaping to 8.1. So we do not need the waiver, we still meet that requirement. I'll take this time to say now that I think as a matter of practice, this board asks for or requires kind of one final set of site plans where we even take the conditions of approval and put them on one of the plans sheets. And so all this information will be provided in that one final set of plans that Jeff or even, Jen can kind of run down with a checklist, so. Roman numeral 4C, site plan review. Jen was having a question on the exterior building entrances. And although I didn't actually put an arrow and say building entrance, the sidewalks all lead to all the building entrances,
Yeah, you
and they
should
do
show
match
us
up. So what
something.
I will do is I will actually leader them out, or put a door symbol there or something to that effect. That will really, but my plans do match the architecturals, and they will.
Awesome.
We did provide some cut sheets and a preliminary lighting plan for the file. What I had or asked the lighting guy to do was, is he took a look at the, obviously the whole site, but the northerly side of it, which is more of a concern, I would believe, which is the abutter side. But I also said to him, because the Prime Metals building is in fairly close proximity, kind of look at the area between the two buildings to see if we needed to supplement anything like that. So that was what was submitted. And Jens Conn here said there was very minimal light trespass over the northerly lot line. I think it was a 1/10 of a foot candle in one area.
Yeah, it's just minimal, but
What
it's,
I have asked the lighting consultant to do is to see if dropping from a 25-foot pole to a 20-foot pole or a 22-foot pole would help that. Again, we've been hit 2 other times, and I know this board has that, and I've heard about it anyway, that this general condition that you guys have the chance to review that. So I'm hoping maybe we can do that as a condition of approval, and we'll get you all that information.
yeah, and I did say that, alternatively, if they can drop it and fix it, great.
Yep.
If they can't do that, or they need to Mickey with it more, and we wanna move forward tonight, we can just condition it.
The next one had to do with the landscaping plan. Jen had asked for some more shrubs along the southerly side of the building between Prime Metals and IDA, that kind of long stretch there.
Yeah, there's none, so they need a few.
And then I guess and also to look at, where we had some grading, we tried to kind of minimize the shoulder, just to try to minimize some of the grading close to the property line. And whether a spruce tree or that green screen would work with such a small shoulder. And again, that's something I'm hoping that we can kind of put down as a condition of approval. We will have a landscape professional kind of take a look at those things, and if he doesn't agree with the exact tree that was chosen, you can either make a suggestion and we'll swap that out prior to planting. Obviously, we could back in and either come back here in front of the board, or to have Jen take a look at it and present that. So I do think that's not an issue.
Well, which side was that, Brian?
So you need planting along the left side, that's not there right now, even though there's a sewer line in there, it's still 40 feet wide. But on the right-hand side, where those spruce are shown, if you look at the grading, there's just a very tiny area at the top of that slope. So we just want somebody like the landscaper that's gonna install those trees to say, yeah, those trees will do okay on such a small top of slope that they'll be able to root and stabilize. And if not, we'll switch out for a different kind of screening planting.
Fine, I'm more concerned with the left and the access road. How much space you say is there between the road and?
There's at least
So our building
Yes.
20,
is 22 feet
at least 20, yeah.
off the property line, which is
Yeah, you got
that
a sewer
solid
line.
here.
Correct.
And
So you're
then
just doing
about another
shrubs.
5 feet to the edge of pavement.
So not
Correct.
trees,
So you want stuff there?
just shrubs, yep. Mhm. Yeah,
Okay.
the same way we did on the Prime Metals building in their little strip too. There's shrubs on
You
both
gotta kill
sides.
them with the snow and the salt,
I
but
was just gonna say, how come?
I think you will.
It's 20 feet deep. If you're throwing 20 feet of snow, you're throwing a ton of snow. Especially because snow removal is not shown, the snow removal areas aren't shown there. So,
Okay, I'm just asking, that's an Arctic plant, something that does well, cause on the right-hand side, on the north side of the building, obviously they've got a challenge moving the snow, and I think they're gonna have the same challenge, on that common drive, moving snow around, but we're green, on it.
we need just shrubs,
Not shrubbettes.
not shrubbettes. None of that.
The next item was letter P, was color of materials and texture and bevel of materials like CMA units must be called out in writing on architectural plans as these details.
So the architect did a great job of providing all the cut sheets, all the brochures, all the color panels, but then didn't take the color name, whatever color name you want. You've seen them on 1,000 architectural plans. You just need to pull the color name on there. So you've got a nice idea of what you want in the, I think it was you, Bob, that actually sent those to me, the latest architecturals. And these ones. So you've got an idea what the color palette will look like, but you actually need to call out the colors. And the thing that's most important, as you know, the wording of the 146 overlay bylaw, you don't even have to interpret it. Basically is, we want everything in the 146 overlay to look like it fell out of 1800. And we've kind of gotten to and that's what it says, pretty much. And we've gotten to the point where no, you know what, with Market 32, with Prime Metals, that if it's quality architecture and it's good materials, that if there's some effort to kind of incorporate Sutton elements, like on the Pleasant Valley crossing, pulling in the stone and the base, on every single building in the industrial park, we've all but one. We've pulled out the office section like is proposed here. You kind of pull it out from the warehouse part of the project, and you dress up that section, pop in some stone, which again, they're showing CMUs here, which you'll remember Schwan Food, the whole center of that building is CMUs, just like these, but they picked the ones with the cool bevel, so it looks like granite block. It's not, it's concrete, but it looks like granite block. So, this one feels a little flatter than that, so if they just call out the bevel, that makes that look more like stone, or maybe that's what was intended and the architect just didn't pick it up in this drawing, because all the colors are all weird. Because there is texture there, you can see it, but again, it hasn't been called out, so I can't tell if it's kind of consistent with what we've done all along. Again, I think we're all agreed, we don't, even though it says it looks like it'll fall out of 1800, that's not what a 21st century business wants. You want to look like you're out of the 21st century. You don't want to look like you just fell out of 1800. So we're not trying to do that, but to really incorporate some of those elements, which in Sutton, the brick mills, the white granite, the cream granite mills, those things are iconic here. So we've tried to at least incorporate that in where we can. So it's really just knowing just having the actual colors written in and calling out, particularly on that CMU block, kind of what color and what type, just the bevel or the surfaces. Other than that, the color's fine. I mean, it's gonna disappear. The rest of that building, kind of like IDA's building disappears, that'll disappear, and the office will pop. Somebody told me they thought that color when they looked at the screen when they were watching our meeting the other night, and they thought it was a Cube Smart storage. I'm like, hey, it is not. It's gray and white. That is not cream and red. It's gray and red. So you might want to darken up that gray a little bit so they don't think you're Cube Smart. But you know, I think you're there. I think you've pulled out the office. You've dressed it up. We'll just call out the kind of block, and you know, like I said, it doesn't specifically meet the language, but I think we need to look at that language and really think about what is it? I mean, we want to do a quality face to the world, but does it really need to be faux 1800? You know? It's a nice concept, it really is, but is that what a 21st century company wants?
I think this building is morphed into what we want, what we wanted, and way at the beginning. Obviously, we set the bar high, but I think it's beautiful, and to have that corner of the building, addressing the old style, that look, probably fits into IBA's whole,
Yeah, it's important.
the whole industry, you know.
I mean, there's no cow on top of it, but it's
No,
good.
not yet.
Just make the whole building cow print.
So yeah, so just
So
calling
you're
out
comfortable with
colors
everything?
and the type of block on that.
All of her final issues?
Absolutely.
Keep going.
The next one is provide any additional waiver request in writing with reasoning and proposed mitigation. There's none that I know of, I wrote down here, but then we'll get to the very next question, and that will be the last thing on the other reasons we decide we need one. So next, rolling right into that, Jim's note is the board under 4D, which is the Route 146 overlay district itself, 4C1A. The board will decide if it's necessary to have a landscape architect prepare the landscape plans, or alternatively, if an additional condition needs to be placed relative to the lack of one. Again, I think we just talked about some of the landscaping.
think we're more than willing to have a landscape professional take a look at that final landscape plan, as part of condition, and I hope the board would, entertain that.
As you know, we've granted this waiver many times. The important thing is when they actually kind of go to do the planting, that we know a landscape professional, the guy who's gonna install these plants, a landscape professional, has taken a really good look at the site, the soils, the conditions, and is confident that what's going in is gonna work and thrive, because you'll have a condition that says, if it dies, you're replacing it within 6 months, and you don't wanna keep paying for that. So, the important part isn't to have pay a landscape architect to stamp the plan, but to make sure, you know, at some point in the process, as these are going in, that a landscape professional is making sure that that site with those plants is gonna work. So I certainly have zero issue with waiving that a landscape architect needs to be hired to stamp this plan. I don't think that's necessary. So I would certainly be good with that waiver if you wanna grant that waiver from 4C1A.
I make that motion.
Second. Any comments from the board,
Yeah, makes sense, yeah.
from the public? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? You got it.
Should I back up one and say now, I don't think there's any more waivers that necessary, so.
There you go. Now we're good.
Hallelujah.
Exactly. So the next one says, if necessary, HVAC units mounted on the roof will have to be screened for visibility and sound. It is preferable to have them on the ground, properly screened and located behind but close to the building like the compactor pad. I did talk to the contractor, RP Masiello, and his preference would be to put them on the roof, just because of some of the size of the ductwork and whatnot. They'd have to go through the side of the building and kind of cause some unsightly aesthetic issues. He did say he was gonna maybe look at mounting that inside the building, within the roof rafters, but he did say more than likely they are gonna stay on the roof. In such way, we will screen them.
Yeah, and just be aware, and I'm more worried about sound, because we have a fan issue on the Atlas Box building with some of their HVAC and their vacuum system, that they ended up having to put in $150,000 sound wall on part of their building, because when it's up that high, it'll just project. It's nice if you can keep it down and block it with the building.
Agreed, and I do think most of that was that vacuum
I do,
system
too.
and some of the super duper fans that they needed on that, so.
I think so,
do
too.
realize that, yep.
But just a cautionary.
Sure. 4CBE, realizing the board allowed you to eliminate the landscape islands has to do with that calculation. Again, we all
Don't need
knew
it.
that before. We do not need that. We have
Excellent.
enough. Architectural
Same
plans
thing.
must call out specific building materials. We already talked about that. The rest of this is all minimum conditions of approval that were put in the memo. I don't know if you want to go through them. You probably will see them, but
I anticipated we'd be in a position tonight to at least close the hearing, if not close the hearing and act on this project. I really just think you have very little left, and like Brian pointed out, the board will vote this, will refer to the current plans with adjustments we've noted need to be made, just adding those few things and calling out these materials. And so that can get on file, and those appeal period days can start ticking. As soon as the appeal period runs, then we'll schedule you into the very next meeting for that plan signing. And that's the plan that Jeff needs to review, make sure all the last details are done. I'll review, make sure all the last details are done. And then, so
Right, 'cause
I
I
don't
would-
think there's any reason to delay at this point. We should,
I would add that, like, the timing now is trying to take it and not miss the entire construction
Yeah, I
season
wanna
for the
get it.
summer. And we really want to get in there and start moving.
I see no reason to.
Great.
Unless I'm missing something, and
I don't think you are.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing, as suggested.
Second.
Thank you, Miriam. Any further comments from any board members?
close.
Any further comments from the public? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? And we need a motion to approve.
So you're doing two different motions. So you're doing the Route 146 overlay. And unlike the use permit, you don't have to do those findings. Basically, you've gone through all the 146 criteria, you've granted waivers. You might wanna just, in your motion to approve the Route 146 overlay special permit. Here's the fun part. you can, these conditions are just blanket conditions, so you can just state them all, and a lot of them are overkill for the Route 146 overlay, or you can go through this list and pick out the ones that are just 146 overlay related. I wouldn't recommend that. And in your motion, you just wanna make sure you're clear on any waivers that the board has not previously granted are not applicable to this project, okay? So, do that motion, grant that, and then you're going on to site plan review, okay? And you're going to base it on the most recent plans as submitted and the changes or the adjustments we discussed making this evening, right? And unfortunately, for whoever, you gotta read the minimum conditions at least once. So, whichever motion you make first, read the whole list. Sorry.
Are you raising your hand, man? Or are you pointing to me? Oh, okay.
I nudged Wally, because he's sitting next to me.
Lucky
It's the
seat.
wrong seat to be in.
I don't,
He's your designee. He went to all the meetings and you're gonna make him do this motion too?
no, I wanna do this properly, so. we
It's
can-
all
we
warmed
can-
up.
Yeah,
So motion to
motion to,
grant the Route 146
well, okay,
overlay
that's okay, the Route 146 overlay district,
special permit
the special permits as discussed, or,
Mhm.
you know, for example,
and having granted the applicable waivers and found that any waivers not granted are not applicable, sections are not applicable to
Is
this
that,
project.
is that even applicable in this one?
What?
I mean, we've, I
146?
don't, yeah, I'm sure everything in there is applicable to this one.
What?
Like, I don't know if that's necessary. My point is.
Okay, so you don't, like, you think every section of the 146 overlay is appropriate, not unlike Wedgewood?
Right.
Okay, so you don't want that as part of the motion? I don't think I think we've addressed pretty much every section. Did we say anything wasn't applicable when we voted those waivers?
no,
I just don't remember, so I was just blanking it. Okay, leave that out.
all right, so, do I have to read all 17 of these things?
Yeah, and then you just don't need to read it for site plan review, we can just do the same
Okay,
17.
The minimum conditions of approval, prior to endorsement of site plans, one, prior to endorsement, all waivers and conditions of approval shall be listed on the plan set. General conditions, one, construction on the site shall be limited to Monday through Friday, 7 AM to 5 PM, and Saturdays, 8 AM to 12 PM, and shall exclude Sundays and all local, state, and federally observed holidays. Two, the board reserves the right to review site landscaping within a year of installation for the purpose of adding plants which may be reasonably necessary to complete the intended aesthetics and screening. Three, the board reserves the right to review and adjust lighting and require adjustments within a year of initial illumination if they find it to be a danger or nuisance. Four, the board reserves the right to require mitigation for noise generated by operations on this site that is deemed a nuisance to abutters. Five, no exterior storage shall be allowed. Prior to the commencement of construction, six, prior to the commencement of construction on the site, all required approvals and/or permits shall be received from applicable permitting authorities. Seven, prior to the commencement of construction on the site, the applicant/engineer shall submit 4 complete prints of the endorsed site development plan, 1 50% reduced print, and 1 electronic copy to the Sutton Planning Office. 8, prior to the commencement of construction, a pre-construction meeting shall be held with the planning director and other town staff as appropriate. The town's consulting engineer, the applicant and/or his representative, the applicant's engineer, and the applicant's construction supervisor for this site. Minutes shall be drafted by the town's consulting engineer and provided to all parties in attendance within 48 hours of approval prior to construction start to ensure all parties are in agreement. 9, prior to commencement of construction, the applicant will provide a minimum of 1 week's notice and review state limits of clearing with planning board representative. Prior to issuance of building or sign permits, 10, prior to the issuance of sign permits, the applicant shall submit any signage not shown on the site plan to the planning board. excuse me, the board shall review and act on the signage for compliance with the sign bylaw and the Route 146 overlay district bylaw criteria prior to the issuance of occupancy permits. 11, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy on any building, security systems and necessary communication amplifiers shall be installed as required by the police and fire chiefs. 12, prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy, the applicant shall submit to the planning board an as-built plan and written certification from the project's engineer that the entire site has been constructed substantially in accordance with the site plan. 13, prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy, the applicant shall also permit the Board of Assessors the as-built plan was supplemented with any additional information required by this board. 14, prior to issuance of occupancy on any structure, a Knox box with the building access keys and/or codes, a building layout plan, and emergency contact shall be installed in an exterior building location approved by the fire department. 15, all doors on structures within the project shall be identified with reflective numbers on both the interior and exterior of the door in a sequence, i.e. clockwise, acceptable to the fire department. The overhead loading dock door shall be similarly identified with the designation system acceptable to the fire chief. Doors leading to the fire sprinkler room shall be labeled as such. All rooftop air handling units on all buildings shall also be identified inside and out in a manner similar to the door identifications. This numbering shall be reflected on the building layout plans in the Knox box. 16, access ways to the roof shall be provided for each building and identified with yellow paint and reflective striping for easy identification during power outages and under smoke conditions. Site maintenance. 17, the applicant shall ensure proper maintenance of plantings on the site, including immediate replacement of dead or diseased plantings unless it is winter or summer, in which case immediately in the following planting season. 18, inspection of and maintenance of site drainage system and structures shall be performed in accordance with the recommended schedule, but in no case less than once per year. A written report shall be prepared by the inspector, including any required correction actions to be taken. Such reports to be submitted to the planning board within 14 business days of owner's receipt of the report. Any required correction actions shall be promptly implemented by the owner at its expense.
All right. Were there any other conditions that were related to the memo commentary? I think they were really just plan revisions, right? No additional commentary, right?
Just a blanket condition that you review the plans for conformity.
Yeah, we don't need it. We don't need that. Okay?
I need a second.
I second that, by the way.
Thank you very much, all right. All right,
like to
any
hear
other,
Wally
any other
Baker,
comments
how many conditions? That was
from
17.
the board?
18? 18. Second by Bill Talcott. Vote.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained.
Okay, so now you just need your motion to approve the site plan based on the plan set with the latest revision date of whatever, and in addition to the changes we discussed tonight. So what was the latest revision date on your plan set? Do you remember?
527.
Approved site plan.
52719.
5/27/19, and with the same 18 conditions. That's an easier motion.
You can make that motion, Michael.
To approve the site plan with the latest revision date, and again, was it 5/27, with the same 18 conditions that were previously noted?
It will not be reread.
It will
Thank
not
you.
be thankfully
In
read.
addition to the changes, the
In addition to the
adjustments
changes
discussed
spoken
tonight.
at tonight's meeting.
Two adjustments.
Need a second.
Second.
Any other comments?
Nope.
Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained.
We didn't miss anything, right?
I don't think so.
You're fully approved.
Well
We
done.
have 14 days to get it on file. I'm gonna try to get it on file by Wednesday at the latest. And then your 20 days will start ticking. As soon as your 20 days are up, we'll sign the plan, you're good to go. In the meantime, if you wanna see the building commissioner and start lining up whatever you need with him, you can do that.
Relation to adjourn.
So moved.
Oh, wait,
Nine? 6 past
Yeah,
9?
thank you.
Wally Baker,
second?
I'm gonna sign all those. Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Mike?
Yep.
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.